Good morning for another edition of Sunday Morning Chess. My name is Jan van der Mortel. I'm an international chess master and I will be streaming for a couple of hours to see what's going on in the world of chess. First of all, in Hartford. Let's take a peek. There might be a chess tournament this morning between some Hartford high school students, but at this moment I don't see them yet. So for now I'll start by trying to get the blood flow to the brain going with a little bit of Puzzle Rush on chess.com. It's a pretty nice feature where you can test your tactical skills, and I think if you go on YouTube you can find a lot of very strong players who post their Puzzle Rush efforts. I'm not all that good at it, but we'll see how it goes. There's a few options. There's a leaderboard. Let's see, who is the leaderboard? OVB. This is, I think, for the last hour. 64, that's pretty good. And for today, 73, GM Lonely Queen Grandmaster. And there's a couple of options. You can go with a 3-minute Puzzle Rush. You get 3 minutes. You're allowed to make 3 mistakes. And then at the end of it, you'll see your score. There's also a 5-minute timed Puzzle Rush. And then there's Survival. Survival, I believe, is seeing how long you can go. I will go with a, let's go with a 5-minute one. My top score apparently is 38. I've not played it a whole lot, but here we go. 3, 2, 1. Oh, check. What is this? Knight takes. Okay. I'm a little sluggish. Like I said, I have to start getting my brain supplied with oxygen and blood. I see some checkmates. What is that? I should just grab the pawn, I suppose, and then push. Queen, and that's it. Okay, I'll take it. There's a check. Fork, take the rook, protect the rook, and be up a piece. I see a checkmate on the back rank. Let's do it. What is going on here? Is this pawn going to run? I think it is. Look at that. Queen. Another back rank checkmate with a queen and a rook. Those are pretty sweet. Now I see a discovery on this diagonal. Take the knight with check, take the bishop. Checkmate in 1. Oh no, not checkmate in 1, almost. Push the pawn, open up the diagonal. What is going on here? Check, take the knight, take the bishop. I have a feeling b3 should be good. Check here and mate on c2. What is going on? Queen h5, queen h7. That should probably be good. Now queen e8. I suppose the knight comes in. And where is going to be mate? Probably around there. Take. I think I have to take this. How can I not take this? And then I have to run out of checks. And then I have to queen. And there we go. Takes. I see a battery on this diagonal. So sack the knight with check and checkmate. Okay, so there's a lot of danger with my king. I see a check. I think it has to be the first move. And then probably another check, otherwise I'm dying. Okay, I win a queen. Good enough. I'm a little confused. What's going on? Take the knight and then fork the king and rook. Even more confused. Something is hanging on b2. That should be pretty good, right? It is. There's a fork at the very end. Fork king queen, regaining all my material. What is going on? There's f7, there's e7. Take, and take the rook. And take back on d1. Win a piece. This should be made. Rook takes, queen takes. Alright, and let's win a queen. And it's trade first, block with the pawn, take the bishop. What is going on? Probably I should do this and get out of there. Takes. What is happening? A double attack knight. Now chase the queen from a5 and take the bishop. Uh-oh, I'm about to get mated, so this really be better. Start with a check and a rook check. And queen check? Ah yes, and take the queen. Very good. Alright, what is going on here? Chase, remove the defender? I think it is. Uh-oh, what on earth? I'm about to get mated. I have to go back. I don't see a good check. I have to take. And I have to do what? To b1 is rook b5. To d is queen a6. Oh, let's go to this square. Now there's a queen a7 incoming. Okay, let's run. Alright. Uh-oh, it's getting hard now. Let's push the pawn. Oh, that one was wrong. Check. Okay, I think there's a mate on h1. Take. What is going on here? G2 mate must be the idea. Let's do it. And promote. 21 seconds. Better hurry up now. I'm going to guess that this is it. And then a little bit of... No, that didn't work. Check. Also wrong. 8 seconds. Started to rush. 31. That's not too bad. Take a quick peek. What is going on? Do we have a tournament for high school students yet? Not yet. If you would like to play me a game, or you have requests for me doing some chess related stuff, whether it's showing you a game or doing puzzle rushes or trying to play a chess tournament, please say so in the chat. I'll take any reasonable requests. In the meantime, let's try another puzzle rush, because I don't feel very woken up just yet. How do I do that? Play again, new rush, a 3 minute. Okay, this is going to be a little quicker. There's a mate incoming, I presume an f7. There's a back rank mate. Now there's also a h-file mate, sort of back rank mate, f5 mate, queen f8, rook takes f8, back rank mate, queen g2, battery on the file. What is going on? I should be able to take and make it. Okay, I'll take that. He's not inside the square of the pawn. d6, bishop b, queen b7. Takes, check, and another back rank mate. We've seen a ton of these already, which sort of shows how important they are. Alright, e5 should win a piece because of the pin. Bishop f7, discovered attack, and winning in exchange. What is going on? g6, I have to get my pawn going, and then I would catch the other pawn. Check, check, mate. I got another queen h4 check, takes, and I suppose I should take the rook. Rook e8 is mate. Queen f7, queen f8, another back rank mate. This will be also a back rank mate. This will be just winning a rook. What is this? I'm supremely confused about this situation. Do I just have to take the queen? Oh no, there's bishop a5. Okay. Queen here. Pin the knight and win the knight. I guess I can just take a free piece, sure. What is going on? And I'm supremely confused. Queen e6, queen e7, and rook c8. Knight protects f2, but what if I check? And check again? Oh, queen e4 mate. What is going on? Knight f5. Take the bishop, attack the knight, and win a piece. Oh, this should be a rook check, and a rook here, and a queen down. Alright, so far so good. Takes and skewer, or double attack. Push the pawn, and make a queen. What is going on? I'm a little confused. Probably check. Too late, 29. All-time number 4. Today, yeah, the first time today. It's very early this week. Yep. Longest streak 29. Highest solved puzzle. Okay. New rush. Now let's go for survival. We've warmed up a little bit. Let's see how far I survive. This is not timed. Queen back to d3. Well, there's a rook e1 check, and there's a back rank mate, so this will be it. Let's see. There's also a back rank mate here. The knight is protecting the escape square, so rook check, bishop blocks, rook takes. I can take this queen with check and attack the, so it's a discovered attack with the rook and pawn, and I win some material. Looks like a back rank mate to me. Yep, the knight can take, but it is mate. Queen g2, why is that not just mate in one? It is, so let's do it. What's going on here? He's threatening maybe rook a7, maybe queen c4, but if I push the pawn, I should get a new queen. So that's what I'll do. Bishop g3 looks like checkmate. Queen is protecting this diagonal. What is going on? This king is wide open. There's a passed pawn. There's all kinds of things going on, but there's a queen and rook battery coming on the 7th rank, so that's mate. Bishop is unprotected. King is not castled. Double attack and win. So if I take the knight, I open up this diagonal, and it's a discovered attack, and I will win a piece because I can recapture with my knight. Pawn to g5. What is this? So I see some action here, and that's what I will go for. Okay, king f7, and I'm fine. Queen takes f2. I see a bishop helping out. Knight f5 attacking the queen. Queen unprotected. There's a rook h8, and there's a knight d5 check. So let's check first, then give the check, and then take the queen, and it's actually mate. Bishop unprotected, king on a1, there's a check on a5. Or queen e7, hold on. So if queen a5, there's bishop c3, takes. Take back, queen takes. Now if he blocks, the rook is hanging, so he's go king e2, and then bishop a6 is mate. So queen a5 check, bishop blocks, knight takes. He can also try to pin my knight, but there's queen e5 check, and I win a piece. So queen a5 must be it. Okay, well, rook d8, really there's nothing else to look at. And rook e8 with check, and queen on the next turn. This is probably not a back rank. I see square c8 available. So let's do it. Well, if I take, I have a skewer on the queen and rook. And my pawn is protecting my rook. Pawn endgame. So he's going to go like this, this, that, and that. Or this, this, that, and that. Well, that last one might not work because I queen with check. So he's going here. And the question is, do I have enough time to go like that? So he goes here, up, takes, here. He should take again, push, 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 push. It's not check, and he pushes with check. That's not going to work. So what's the deal? So here, let's make sure I did calculate this correctly. I probably didn't. And I queen, and when he gets there, I have just enough time to make my way back to b8 or b4 and get in front of the pawn, and then it should win pretty easily. So here we go. Alright, that was that. Okay, there's a lot of white pieces around my king. Aha, there's a check, attacks the rook, so that has to be pretty good, I believe. Yeah, let's do it. This pawn is pinned by the rook, so it's not a very good defender of the knight, which means I should take it and win a piece. Pawn takes, queen, and knight e6 mate. What is going on? Is bishop d5 mate? I believe it is. But this square, this square, this square will all be covered, so here we go. Queen is on a7, so there's a check and he blocks. Then I can try to bring my knight in to attack this f-pawn and threaten mate in a couple of moves. Okay, that has to be it. The only question is whether I put it here or here. That is the only question. This queen cannot protect the f2 pawn, so I will get in. So you'll have to do something like king g2, queen takes, king out. At the minimum I take the bishop with check, but I might also be a mate. If I go to g4, he will be attacking my knight when he gets to h3. So I think I made a mistake. Alright, I'm down a piece. I have a passed pawn almost to the other side, and I see a pin. And if I take, he catches my pawn because he takes with the king and he's in time. So I have to play g2 and win the rook. Okay. What is going on here? My rook is pinned. There's a check here. The king has to walk out. I can take this with check. I mean, it's a decent start to the affairs, but is it good enough? Something tells me I should be not rushing this one. Let's see. I don't see anything else. If I take the bishop first, that just seems that shouldn't work. So I think I have to go check, and I have to go check, and that's apparently it. I see a back rank mate. Queen takes, rook takes, the rook comes in, rook blocks, and mate. Like he can give up all his pieces before he gets into mate. Again, this h4 e1 diagonal. The pawn tries to kick the knight, but there's this check and the knight takes, and then the pawn takes back and I take the rook, unless queen takes is some sort of a dangerous attack of the king, but the king can just move and he'll be fine, so I take the rook. What is going on here? Well, this has to be something special if I want to win this with white, because if it's his turn, he can check me a bazillion times. So the first move I'm looking at is forcing a queen trade and winning the pawn endgame. So if I go there and he takes, I take, I will be the first one to catch the pawn, and my pawn will make it to the side. If I do this and he moves his king, I can trade myself and also do the same thing. So this should be the one winning. Alright, I'm down a rook, so high alert. queen here, the king will probably escape or not. Yeah, rook f4 check is not in the position. So I have to start with check. He has to block, otherwise it would be rook h8 mate. Now I play rook h8 to lure the defender away from the queen, and I win back my material. Okay, what is this? I can just take, but that feels like that is too easy. But is there anything else? So if I take queen takes, then I take the defender of the rook, and I take the rook. So that actually looks pretty good. Let's do it. All right. My king is a bit open. I'm down a piece, but there's something going on along this diagonal. If I play knight d4, I'm threatening to take the knight. I'm also attacking this bishop for good measure. It looks pretty good, because if I move knight d4 and he moves the knight, then the queen is pinned and no longer protecting the bishop. So here we go. Yep, that's it. What is going on? I'm sitting behind the white pieces. So this pawn is coming down. I have a rook against the bishop. So I am up some material, but he's about to eliminate a lot of it. Is this a mate? I think it might be. If I check him now, then the king can run to this square. So if I play h3, I'm preventing the king from running away, threatening rook h6. He has a spied bishop with the bishop, but the king moves over, and he cannot stop me. Well, he can block it once, but not more than that. Okay, so I am up a knight. So white is playing for a draw. If I check and take, I just cannot lose this pawn. That's the only thing that matters. So check. King walks. Take. King walks. But he cannot get closer. Oh, he can. He can go there and there. Alright, so what's going on? Knight check. King walks. Knight takes the pawn. The king keeps walking towards my pawn. If I push it, he will catch it. So knight takes, king walks, takes, king walks. Threatening to go to g6 and hunt down my pawn. And I don't see how I can stop that. So, what is going on? If knight check, king here. Suppose I can bring it back the knight here. This should not be so difficult, but it is. Knight back. If he walks to my pawn, I take his pawn, he keeps walking. protect, he attacks both. If h4, how does that do anything? King here. Then I have to move my knight. I'm having some trouble here. Let's go back to that first line. King, knight check, king walks, knight takes pawn, king keeps walking, threatening to go after my pawn. Now my knight needs to get behind the pawn to protect it, but I'm so far away. So I don't see how that would go. What am I missing here? Knight f4 check, king e5. How am I going to keep my h-pawn alive? What am I missing? Knight here. Well, that doesn't make any sense. Knight check, king here. Knight check, king here. Then what? Check, king here, knight takes pawn, king moves over, threatening to come to g6. Okay, so if king d6, king g6, if I move the pawn up, king h5 will catch it, so I have to go knight f4. Protect the pawn. Now if the king moves to g5, my king can come to e5 and protect my knight. So knight, king f5 is the only move. Oh, and then I play knight g6. Okay, there we go. So knight check, takes, knight check. And now my king can protect and I win. Well, it took a lot longer than it should have. That's for sure. What's going on? I'm down a whole rook, but this king is completely opened up. No black pawns are shielding it. So there's a zillion checks. Well, not a zillion, at least 2 of them. I could take this with my rook, but what's my follow-up? Okay, so there's a check. And if he sticks to the a file, I have rook a1 pinning the queen to the king. So if check, he has to go king b7 to get out of that. But then I have rook b1 check. If he goes to c8, my queen can take on h8. So this must be it. He blocks and I pin and I win back some material. Oh, this keeps going. Well, look at h8 is hanging, so I'll add that for good measure. What is going on here? So there's some back rank issues for sure. There's a check here and a check there, but if I check with the queen, he can block with the queen. I mean, at that point, I could take his bishop. Okay. What if I take his bishop first? He takes my queen, I check, he blocks. Okay, then I don't win. I'm losing some material, so this is it. And I won a bishop. What's going on here? So I can take the queen, but he takes on see my rook and makes a queen. I have to take back, and we have a pretty exciting position. I don't know if that works for me. But what would work for me? There's all kinds of checks. This is diagonal. It's interesting. So bishop e5 check. What does that do? Not sure. What does that do? Well, let's go for the forcing line first. Rook takes, pawn takes, queen takes, rook takes. Are there any good moves in that position? I don't really see one. Unless queen c8 is one. Queen c7 check. It's interesting because if the king goes to f2, there's queen c2 check. A triple attack. So that's good. So rook takes, pawn takes, queen, rook takes, pawn takes, queen takes, rook takes back, queen c7 check. So the king has to go up, which is never a good sign. If he goes up, at the very least I have queen c4 check. Double attack, but I might have more with h5 or bishop f6. Alright, I'm pretty confident this is it. Okay. And I win a rook. And I can block this check, and we're all good. Alright, he's attacking my queen. I'm attacking his queen. So what is going on? If I take his queen, he takes with check. I move my king, he takes my rook. And then all kinds of things are happening. It's a tricky situation. I don't really see anything there. If I move my queen, he has knight e2 check. But that actually doesn't really work, because I can take, he takes, I take, he takes, and I can block with my knight, and I win a knight. So I can also move my queen to d3. And then he has to deal with the attack of the pawn. He cannot take with the knight, because the knight is pinned. And if he takes with the queen, I take the knight. So this must be it. He's going to try this one. But that's it. Alright, this king is wide open. There's a check here. Which looks pretty good. I mean, what is he going to do after that? If I check, he can block, but I can take every single one of them. If king moves here, I have bishop check here. How can this not be correct? Take. Okay, alright then. I'll take it. Here's some action along this diagonal. What does that mean? Well, there's b4. If he takes my knight, I'll take back, and his queen is trapped, so he has to give up some material with b6 and or c5, so that's not good for black. If I play b4 and he takes, then this bishop is no longer blocking this diagonal, and knight c6 would actually win the queen. Opens up the diagonal. So b4 is looking pretty good. I think that's knight g4. Well, I didn't look at that, but that's because I think I can just win a piece. Alright, so I cannot take with my rook. What's going on? Is he coming in with his knight? But I can take it now. I can take his knight and then take his rook. Okay. Take the bishop, push the pawn and fork. That looks pretty straightforward. So is this the rating level of the puzzle? So I missed the 1275. And now I'm at 2176, so the level is going up. Let's see what's going on here. F6, so the pawn is pinned by the queen, so I cannot take. This pawn is hanging, but my knight is also pinned, so I'm not sure if that's going to be a good idea. Also, I am down a rook for a down an exchange. Yes, 2 bishops, 2 rooks. I have 1 rook, 2 knights, and a bishop. There's also queen h6 attacking this g6 pawn. That seems to be one of the most tempting moves, because he will not be able to protect g6. So queen out, queen takes, queen g7, also attacking the rook on e8, so he has to move king f8 to protect that rook. And then what? What then? E6 is protected by the queen. I mean, I could give perpetual check easily with my queen, but I think I should want more. There is bishop e3 threatening to come in on h6 with mate. But then he has to move the bishop to get square e7 for his king. And what is happening there? Bishop check, king e7. There's a lot going on here. Queen g7, king d8. Okay. I don't see anything better really at this point. So I have a feeling it must be queen h6. Knight e6 is queen e5. What else can I do? No, it has to be it. He moves the bishop immediately to bring the queen back to defend on the 7th rank. But if I take, he has to go king f8. So really, why wouldn't I take? I guess it was easier than I thought. Okay, I am not up material. It's very exciting. The king can no longer castle. My king can castle, but his queen is pinning. What is the idea here? Is there some sort of action going along on this diagonal? Both rooks are unprotected. If I play d3, I open up the diagonal and attack the bishop. If he takes with the bishop, there's queen c3, targeting both rooks, which looks pretty good. If he takes with the queen, there's bishop f6 doing the same thing. So these are the targets. And with d3 I open up. It's not good. Well, we'll go back to it and try to figure out what went wrong. What is going on here? I'm down material. 2 bishops for a rook. He's attacking my rook. My king is not particularly happy. Of course I have a rook check. Okay, yeah, I'm just gonna go for it. I think there's a rook check king up rook down, threatening mate. You might be right. The Exao, you might be right. I'll go back to it soon. Let's see first rook check. King g2, rook h1, threatening mate. If he moves up, that's rook h3, winning the rook. He could move up the pawn to get the bishop to protect g1, but okay, I'm gonna take this pawn with en passant with check one way or another. That should be pretty bad. Am I convinced it's good enough? I already made one mistake, one more mistake and I'm out. So I'm walking on a very tight rope here. Well, rook b1 has to be it. There's really no other move. So we'll start with rook b1 anyway. It has to be the good move. Now I can also move the other rook to h1. But it's not threatening mate. I am threatening to maybe pick up the rook. Not really. So I don't really see anything but rook h1. Is there a queen bishop check? The king moves out. So that should be okay. Alright, I'm just gonna go for it. Well, I was wondering about this f pawn, but now I'm pretty sure about that. Okay. This king is in tremendous trouble. This checks here, check here. I don't know, this doesn't look very safe. The white king, on the other hand, is also not particularly safe. The bishop is aiming, the rook is aiming. There's a check on the back rank. There could be even a rook check first. There could be some pinning action, but whatever black does, it has to be preferably with check before white gets a chance to check me. So queen d1 is my first thought. He has to block with the rook. Okay, and I can take it. What's that? Quarry God? Do I what? Rook blocks, bishop takes, queen. Alright. Sure. Do you want to play on chess.com or on Lichess? Queen d1 check, rook f1 blocks, bishop takes, queen g5. I can block with my bishop, so that's good enough. Because at that point, hell is about to break loose on the white king. So this looks like a good move. And so does this. Checks with the bishop. I could have looked at that as well, but can my king just run? I think I can. Yes. Alright, we can play on chess.com. What's your username? First, let's finish this study puzzle. What is it called? This puzzle rush. Alright, I'll find you after this is done. Hopefully it won't take too long. Well, I guess I would be doing pretty well if it takes long, but what's going on? This knight, it's not a great knight. Spawn could become quite good. What if I just take? How can that possibly be wrong? I don't see how that could be anything else. So now there's a back rank issue. There's a passed pawn. So all kinds of good things are happening. But what is the best way to play? This knight is still a target, but it has an escape hatch on b4 because the pawn is protecting it. If I move the bishop, I'm threatening to checkmate. So, what to do? The bishop can go anywhere. I'm half tempted by bishop d3. Somehow might be important to line up with the knight. If I do threaten back rank mate, he has to either get the pawn out, move the king over, maybe bring the rook back. So what would be the... Aha. So if I move this and he moves the pawn over, I have a check and I win the knight. That's very promising. So bishop d3. He has to play rook d1. And then, what's the point there? I suppose I go bishop e2. And when the rook moves away, I'll push d3, d2, d1. Okay. There we go. Check. Take the knight. Next. There's a lot going on here. Not too afraid for my own king yet. This rook c3 is in the position. And queen a2. And queen b4. But probably something with check. So this looks very tempting. Forcing king d3. And then rook c3 forces king takes c3. And I can follow up with another check on c8, forcing king back. And I could check on c2, forcing the king over. And then what? There's a rook check, forcing rook block. This is getting a little complicated. There's a queen check, forcing king to the second rank. And I don't really see anything there. So again, queen check, king out, rook takes pawn, king takes rook. I'm looking for forcing moves first when I calculate these things. Because if I look at a forcing move is when my opponent doesn't have too much choice in his replies. So I can see after queen check, for example, there's only two replies, king down and king up. If he goes king down, then the rook comes down with check, and that's just bad news. It's made in the next turn. So I see after queen a2, this is the only way for him to go. Then I look at the first check I see, which is rook check, and he has only one move, so I can calculate that. And I see another rook coming to c8 checking. Now he has some blocking moves, but I'll just take him, so that doesn't work. So king d3 back is the only move. Now the only check, there's queen c2, but there's also queen takes b3. So there's two of them. Queen c2 is the most forcing because he has to go to e3. And then there is this rook c3 check, but I don't see a follow-up after rook d3. I could also take his rook. It's not check, but I'm certainly threatening rook c3. And it might just be a good move or a good position, because there are several threats and I don't quite see his defense yet. It's looking very dodgy. So that might be it, but let's see if there's something more convincing. Queen check, king moves, rook takes, king takes, rook check, king moves over. What if I take on b3 with check? And the king seems to be running out. And everything can block. on the next turn, so that's not it. So, once more, queen check, king out, rook check, king takes, rook check, king over. This is something I'm missing there, not that I can see. So queen check, king over, and then that is the question. So if rook comes in, then he can block with the rook, and he might be okay. I think he is. Queen check, the king can move down, and then he's ready to block on d2, so I don't think that works. So queen check, king out, rook takes, rook c8, king d3, bishop, queen c2, king e3, queen takes d1. So what have I won? I've won one pawn. That's not really impressive, but the problem is that I have a lot of checks coming up. It's queen g1, queen e1, queen c1, rook c3, and some of them are extremely dangerous, like queen e1, rook c3 is a mating threat. Rook c3 is also a mating threat. He has to block with the queen, which is not going to last too long. I'm fairly happy with that calculation. Let's see if I take first. No, I think it has to be this. Okay, so now the spy checks are starting. Aha, so we can run away or something? Well, I'm not too afraid of that. Okay. Alright, so what's going on here? If queen comes down, the king moves out. Then I have g6 check, and if the king takes, that's queen h5 mate. It's a mating tactic I've played more times than I should have played in my life, out of a London system opening, an opening trap. My most famous victim ever is Roman Djindjikashvili back in 1993 or so. We were one of the first players on the American Internet Chess server, which in 1995 became the Internet Chess Club. And when I joined, there were not that many players, a couple hundred maybe. Internet was pretty young yet. The only place where you would have internet would be a university or a college. And we would spend a lot of time playing online chess on the American Internet Chess server. And the best player at that time at the server was Grandmaster Roman Djindjikashvili. I think he still lives in New York. I'm not entirely sure, but he's quite a famous grandmaster. I think he's written a lot of books. So my first games on the internet were actually a match against Roman. And I believe we played 20 games. And I lost something like 12-8 or something to that effect. But one of them was this trick with queen h8 check, king out, and then g6, a magnet, luring the king there, and queen h5 mate. So if queen h8 check, king f7, g6, he has to keep running, but then queen g7, bishop blocks, queen takes f7 mate. So that's it. There we go. Thanks to Roman. Well, what's going on? I should be down quite a bit of material here. My pawn structure is a mess. My king is not safe. I mean, he cannot check on the next turn, but still. This queen is a pretty powerful piece. But what's going well for me? Well, first of all, I have a check, forcing king e1. Then I have a check on g3, which could be pretty good. I'm not sure. And the king can keep running. My rook is hanging. So I'm not entirely sure what that is about. What what is going on. He doesn't have any checks on the next turn, so I might have a little bit of time. Like rook h2. Oh, here's queen e4 check. Okay. What is going on? He's queen e4 check no matter what. So even if I would start with a bishop d6 or bishop check, he would be able to check and play rook h1, and there would be nothing for me on the h file. So I have to hurry up. This is not a moment to take a breather. I think a queen h2 has to be the first move. Am I willing to just risk it, and not seeing yet exactly how I'm going to bring the bacon home? But I don't see anything else. Well, let's go for it. Okay, so now we have the next position. Still, there's always a queen e4 check. So again, I don't have a lot of time. So queen g3 really is just about the only move I can see that seems to be worth anything. I'm also, bishop b4 is a move to keep in mind. Threatening mate, and if the bishop takes, there might be something good, but I don't see it yet. Actually, maybe something like that is in the position. So if queen takes check, the king moves over. He has to. If he goes up or blocks, then the rook can come in with check. That's, I haven't calculated, but that seems to be bad news. Actually, queen takes rook block, rook down, king up. How bad is that? Is that really bad? Maybe the point is, well, one idea was queen check, king moves, queen takes d3, threatening queen takes f1, among maybe other things. If he takes my rook, I'm also looking at bishop b4, threatening mate. Well, for starters, I don't think there's anything other than queen g3 check. So I'm going to do that. And now, is there some sort of a rook h1? Probably not. There's still queen e4 check in the position. And queen e4, I really just don't like that happening. So queen d3 is extremely tempting because it stops the check, and it attacks the rook, and it threatens bishop b4, and it takes a pawn. So all good things. After queen d3, I already have two passed pawns. I'm also threatening rook h2. Yeah, I think it has to be the move. I don't see really what else I could possibly do. I'm going to do it. Okay, he takes the rook. Now the only question is, do I take this guy or not? I mean, it's a fairly easy solution. Queen takes, king walks. Queen can take with check, king keeps walking. Queen can check again. Then he has to block. That seems to be not a nice thing, is I'm protecting this h7 square from getting checked myself. Oh, it does h1 check. Is that a big deal? Probably not. Rook c8 would actually win material there. So, I'm fairly convinced this is it. Okay, didn't have to show much more than that. On to the next one. I mean, this is looking awesome for white. I'm not even down. I'm up a pawn. This king is on e7. My knight is on d6. His knight is hanging. What on earth is happening here? Am I getting my queen trapped if I take the knight? There's a check. But it's bishop c3, so that's not really working. So if I take, what is the point here? Rook b8. Queen here, rook takes b2. That must be the idea. Okay, well that might be it anyway. Do I see anything else here? I mean, is he threatening anything? I think his rook b8 is the main threat. If takes, knight takes, that might still be pretty good for white. Actually, position should be good for white. Almost should be more than one way to be good, but what is the crushing one? There's also d5, opening up this diagonal, which is quite tempting, I have to say. Actually, this might be very good. If d5, if he plays rook b8, I can take on c6, he takes, I just keep taking. I can't imagine that's a very good position for him. Maybe. If d5, there's also queen check. Queen check and rook hb8. That could be a little unpleasant. Oh, that doesn't look so good. So maybe no d5 yet. So knight takes. I don't see anything better at this moment. Rook b8. Aha, now there's d5, because there's also bishop f6 check, skewering these pieces. So knight takes, rook b8, d5, rook b7, bishop check. King has to go somewhere. E8 or f8. And I take, what is going on? Well, I'm pretty sure it has to start like that. I'm actually going to gamble it. Okay, so now the question is d5 or not, or queen a6. Queen a6, rook b2 doesn't really feel all that spectacular. I mean, I could just castle and I should be practically winning. Up a pawn. Black is a bad king. I have this outpost. Looks horrendous for black. But let's see if there's anything more aggressive. d5 opens up the diagonal of the bishop and threatens bishop f6 check. I mean, how bad can that be? So d5, rook takes queen, bishop check, now if the king goes to e8, there's a knight check, king moves, take the queen, take back, and I take the rook, and he can take back, but I'm at least up in exchange, so that's pretty good. d5, rook takes, bishop f6, so king f8. Could I just take the knight on c6? I mean, everything is hanging. The rook is hanging on b7, the queen on d8, the rook on h8. If he checks, I still have bishop c3. I have a feeling it's very good for white. Oh, let's do it. He checks immediately. Well, bishop c3 is the point, right? What is going on? Okay, well, down a queen and a knight, so I better be looking for some checking action. But there's a lot going on here, because I can check, he can move, but whatever if I move the bishop and check again, he can just stuff things on g4, and he can sack all kinds of material to survive, but it might work. Sorry, Cory God, it takes a little while. You don't have to keep watching. I will challenge you when I'm ready, and we'll take it from there. I'll be around for quite a while still. Hour and a half, 2 hours maybe. So let's try to see how far we can get this. If you guys have got any ideas, then please let me know. Okay, so let's keep looking here. Bishop check. I think has to be the move. I mean, what else? If I blink, like take this bishop or something like that, he has rook g1 and his king should be good after that. So bishop check has to be the move, does it not? It has to be the move. If I take the rook, then he plays rook g4. So, okay, I'm willing to put my money on bishop g2, king g1. So now, okay, this should have, I haven't really looked at any moves, but now that I have this position, I see bishop e4 blocking the 4th rank, and it will be mate. So, pretty easy. Better be safe than sorry, I suppose. What is going on here? So it is sort of even-ish. Yep, it is actually even. My king is wide open, so there are checks. I guess only one. Most importantly, he's about ready to queen his pawn, which would lead to big sadness for the white king, because that I'm not going to survive. So again, this has to come with some level of urgency. What kind of level of urgency? Well, I'm looking for checks first, but really, rook here check? I don't think so. King just takes. I can threaten mate. For example, bring my rook to the back rank, threatening some combination of ugliness. But there's a queen h3 check, so I'm not sure about that yet. There's also e6, which attacks the rook, but more importantly opens up this diagonal for a queen check, which also threatens mate. So e6 threatens mate, queen a8 threatens checkmate. Rook d7 is another option, also threatening checkmate by taking. But if he takes, I take with check. The king moves. Alright, I can... Oh wait, if rook d7, there's queen h3, so let's forget about that. So far, I don't see anything better than e6 is my main candidate. If e6... Well, queen e5 is a devastating threat, so... I think he has to check. So then the question is, where does my king go? Which is a very good question. Where does my king go? I don't really have an answer yet. Can I go to e2? He could check though. When it takes, he takes with check and then he queens. So e6, queen h3 is a bit of a problem. I cannot go to f2 because the rook takes on f4. If I go anywhere else, he has queen d3 check. Okay, this doesn't seem to be probably easier than I think, but for now it's much more difficult than the previous ones. But then again, things always easy when you see them and always difficult when you don't. So even a maiden one, I wonder, well, it's easy. But like if you don't see it, what's easy about it? Of course, once you know it, everything is easy. Up until that point, nothing is easy. So this one for now is not easy to me. What is going on? Queen a8. Again, I think he has to check, because there's not really... I guess there's queen h7. It's hard to believe that would work. Might work. There's also queen h3 still. I'm drawing a bit of a blank. Anyone? Any one of the 7 people watching? Do you see anything? I'm losing my hope. What is the move for white? Queen e6. Is that... at least I'm stopping queen h3, but what am I threatening with that move? Queen f6 looks nice, but then that's not really anything he takes, and the king can move. So that doesn't work. What am I missing? What am I missing? I must be missing something. Yeah, e6. I think queen h3 is the only move. And then I just didn't see a good place for my king. But maybe I have to calculate a little deeper. If king f2, there's rook f4 check. That just feels no bueno. So if king to e4, I was thinking queen d3 check, or maybe queen g2, but let's say just queen d3. Well, also e4 is h1 queen check, so that, no, a4 is out. If king d4, queen d3 check, king c5, what is going on? I think he can take in queen is the issue. Alright, so e6, queen h3. What if I go down to e2 or d2? I was still thinking queen d3. Oh, wait, let's see, king d2. If queen d3, I can take. He takes back. It's not check. And I can take on f7, threatening checkmate. So if he takes back, then my rook can crawl behind the pawn and stop the h-pawn, and I win. Alright, so maybe this is it. e6, queen h3, king d2. That probably has to be it, because there's no other checks. Okay. Yeah, the c3 check, but I can take, so that's not an issue. Queen g2 is protected by my queen. And there's no other checks. So I'm threatening devastating things with queen e5, queen d4, and e takes f7. Alright, I'm going to do it. Thank you, Diek Xiao. Here we go. Here we go. Alright. 2704. Again, that took a little longer than I was hoping for, but sometimes you just gotta take the time. I'm white, and there's just total mayhem around my king. I have no squares, there's 2 bishop diagonals, a queen. It's like 15 points breathing down my neck. So whatever I do, better check. So I see 2 of them. Well, there's more, but I start with looking at these 2. Rook g6 was my first thought. The bishop is spinning the pawn. So the king has to move. Now if he moves to h7, this rook check. And then wherever he moves back, my queen will come in. Either king g7, queen f6, king g8, rook h8 mate, or king g8. I have queen g6 check. because the pawn is still pinned. King f8, queen f7. So after rook check, he has to go to f8. It's a good start to the proceedings. Is it good enough? Now I have a check on d6 in that position, forcing rook e7 with a block. But then what? I have rook g8. Ah, wait, maybe this is it. Rook check, king here, rook g8. If king takes queen g6 check, if king goes back to f8, there's queen f7 checkmate, so the king has to go to h8. Then I can check again on h6 or f7. I'm not sure which one is the... Probably have to go to f6 if I want anything. And the king, doesn't matter where it goes, h7 or g8. I can take f7. Well, it has to go to h7. So I have to take with the queen. King down. And then what? Queen back. King up. I don't see a mate. So close. Rook check, king f8. Rook check, king takes. Queen comes in. On g6, king has to move to h8. If I take on h6, he goes back. If I check, he goes back. Now in a practical game, it's nice that I have at least a draw, but this is a situation where a win is the only thing that counts. Otherwise, my streak is gone. So rook check, king over, rook check, king takes, queen check, king h8, queen h6, king g8, queen g6, king h8. And I'm not doing it. Anyone? Any help? Any help out there? Rook g6. King f8. Now whatever I do, yeah, maybe look at bishop f7. Why not? I mean, I can spend hours and hours looking at everything else. But maybe bishop f7 is just the easy route. If king g7, there's rook g6. And if he goes to the h file, I'll keep taking on h6, and it's probably bad news. Let's first see if bishop f7, king g7, rook g6, king takes, queen f6 mate. So bishop f7, king g7, rook g6. Can I go down to f8? Probably not. I have queen check, rook blocks, rook check, king takes, queen g6 mate. Alright, so bishop f7, king g7, rook g6. He has to go to the h file, maybe. And if he goes to the h file, I'll take. He has to come back. I can check with the queen and mate. So bishop f7, king f8 is the only one I have to check still. And it's hard to believe that's going to work. Nah, it has to be it. I'm convinced it is it. Okay. Alright. Alright. Thank you again, Mr. Zhao. It was correct. I got bogged down, I think, by the rook g6 first method, but this is next. I'm down a rook, so this better be good. How good is that? There's a queen f5 mating pattern, but the pawn is still protecting. So f5 is interesting because if he takes, it's mate. So after f5 he has to go to f3, and that will allow my rook to get into the action with check. Now already I cannot imagine there's anything better than that. It's just impossible. Yeah, if I check here, then the king is just gonna run, and maybe I can check many times after that, but f5 has to be the move. Now I probably also have to take on g4 if I want anything. If I play queen d5, the king runs, so I have to take. Okay, now it gets serious. I see a bunch of checks, b2, e2 and d5. d5 was my first thought. e2 also looks interesting, b2 not really. So which one will it be? Let's start with queen e2 check. If he goes up, there's queen f3 check, king here, queen h3 mate. So queen e2, king h1, only move. Now the problem is that when I check again, he can block with his rook. And I was not particularly happy with that. And if I check again, he can block with his queen. And I'm even less happy with that. So that's why queen d5 was my first instinct. And maybe I should look at it. Queen d5. So he has two squares. If he goes to g3, there's again queen f3, queen h3 mate. So after queen d5, he has to go to h2. Now my rook can come in. And, oh, why it's mate, so queen d5. Why the spied block. The rook comes in. And that's it. Very good. Okay, I'm down a knight, but his king is not particularly happy because the queen's on the board. Now I could take with check. If he takes with the king, I could check again. He goes back. I come in with a check. He goes out. I play rook f2, pinning the queen to the king, and I should be in very good shape. Winning at least a rook for the queen, and the position should be winning pretty easily after that. So if rook takes, he has to take with the queen, but when he does that, b2 is hanging. And I can take b2, and then a1 is hanging as well, which looks tempting. Now, is it good enough? Not sure. If I take, and he takes, and I take, he could play queen f5, trying some perpetual check against my king, because my king is a little lonely with just a pawn. So I'm not sure if that works, actually, because then I have to protect the queen e6 check. I can play rook e8, but then he can attack my rook. It's getting a little convoluted. There's also some queen c1 check, but I don't know. That's one other idea. Queen takes, and then not queen takes pawn, but rook f8. Because where is this queen going? Yeah, rook f8 anyway, that's what I'm thinking, because if the queen goes back, I have the same queen g1. If he goes to e1, h1, well, I have queen check here, or maybe at that point I can take. Yeah, this is looking pretty good. Well, this has to be the first move, and rook f8 has to be the move as well. And here we go. Alright, and that's it. Okay, well, rook hanging, there's a knight close to my king, there's f7 square, which is practically mate. So the black king is a bit of a pickle. Now I have apparently taken two rooks with my knights, which I've never done. In the millions of games I've played, I don't think I ever... Well, maybe I did. Maybe the other day I actually did. But anyways... what is going on? Clearly, I have to fend off the various threats white has. I am up two rooks for a minor piece, plus a bunch of pawns, so I can lose some stuff, that's for sure. If I need to lose some stuff, I can. So queen d5 could even be a move. If he takes back with the bishop, my plan was to get my king out of dodge and castle queenside. Queenside. Attacking the bishop. There's a rook d1 coming in. Maybe, I don't know. I'm up how many points? 13 against 3, so I'm up 10 points. So a queen sack is not out of the question. But what else can I do? Can I just play rook f8? Is that even a move? No, that's queen e5 check, and that's mate. Or is it not mate? King d7. It's looking so scary, but maybe it's okay. Alright, I'm gonna need some help here because I have a feeling this one is a very tricky one. Very, very tricky one. There's not really a check. There's knight g3 check, but I don't see how that accomplishes anything. After h takes, so probably not. Maybe I can somehow get this queen out. Like queen h4 threatens queen f2 mate. And if he takes on h8, I'll play king d7. I'll be attacking his queen. I'll be threatening mate. Could be good. Although I'm little dubious about it. So what is... Okay, I want to check queen d5 again. I haven't seen anything bad yet. If queen d5, queen takes h8, I can move queen king d7. Now he doesn't have any good checks, and his rook is hanging and his bishop is hanging, so that looks pretty good. Alright, so after queen d5 he cannot take on h8, and he really doesn't have any other move than bishop takes d5. That is the only move he has. Now of course he's threatening big things on f7, so my king probably has to get out of there. So really I don't see anything better than castles queenside. Now I'm attacking this rook. There's still not a good check for him because e6 is protected by my pawn. If he takes f7 with the queen, I have rook f8 pinning to the king, so that's not good. I suppose he could do what? I don't know. What could he do? I cannot take because h8 is hanging, so maybe I'm not threatening anything. But g8, I don't know. Queen d5 would be my... If I would have to choose now, queen d5 would be my choice. But that's only if I have to choose now. Okay, I'm ready to gamble it. I've been at this for a long time. But I have to be patient. When you play chess, you see something good, there might still be something better. When you play Puzzle Rush, there's only one option, to find the best, and otherwise it's the end of the line. But I don't see it. What else I could do? Rook f8, queen e5, king d7 just feels wrong. It just doesn't feel good. I don't see anything spectacular. If knight f6, king c8. Okay. It just feels so dangerous. Moving rook f8, queen e5. Well, he also has knight f6, but is that really... something to be worried about? I'm not so sure. I should be worried about that. King e7. Queen d5, huh? I mean, I'm up a bunch of pawns. Takes, castles. So I'm not threatening to take yet, because h8 is hanging. So what if he plays a move like... What can he play? Okay, one thing he cannot do is play king g1 to trap my knight, because I think I have rook takes d5. Queen takes rook, rook d8 back, attacking the queen and threatening mate. So that should be good. What if he plays like bishop g5, attacking my rook? I was considering rook g8. Now if he takes on f7, there's still the pin on the f file, so he has to go... I could go queen e5. Not convinced. Anyone? Any ideas? Well, now of course I think it's the hardest one, but always when I don't see it, I think it's the hardest one. I guess the hardest one yet. But this one might really be the hardest one. What to do? Queen h4. Okay. I'm threatening queen c4 check and queen f2. So certainly a move with a punch. But am I going to get punched first? Queen h4, there are a bunch of checks. There's c7 check, there's f6 check, there's h8 check. Now I'm not sure which one is the best. Let's start with queen h8. King d7. Now I'm threatening to mate on f2, take on c4 and take on h8, so that's a lot. If he keeps checking me with his knight, I should be able to run out of there somehow. Like king c6. I think I can get out of there. Bishop d5, king b5. I think he's running out of steam if he does that. So queen h4, queen h8, king d7. Knight f6 might not work. That would be nice if it doesn't work. What if he plays queen f6? He took a rook, so he's actually still down 8 points. That might be a bit too many. Is he down 8 points? If queen takes, knight takes, I move my king. It's still very tricky because my knights are trapped. Do I really have enough? But if queen f6, there's also queen c4 check and queen d5. So actually queen f6 does not work. Okay, so maybe we're on a interesting path. Queen h4. Queen h8, king d7 looks to be good for black. So queen h4, what if queen e5? What's happening there? This is very tricky. I'm a little afraid. If I move my king to d8, there's bishop g5 winning my queen, so that's not good. King f8, there's bishop... No, that's not bishop h6, because my queen is protecting it. Well, there's at least queen h8 check and coming back, so no king f8. So king d7 only move. Knight f6. Can this be... How is this possible to be it? How is this possible? King c8. And there's no checks. That would be rather unbelievable. Queen h4, queen e5, king d7. Does queen c7? Uh-oh. That could be a problem. Yeah, it is a problem. If I go back, well, at the very least he can go back as well. He probably has better than that, but at the very least. And if I would go up, I'm walking into this discovery. That's not possible. I cannot survive with my king surrounded by a queen, bishop, and knight. That doesn't look survivable. So I think there's a problem here. If queen h4, queen e5, I am very doubtful this is going to work because of queen c7 check. So unless I'm missing something, queen h4 might not be the way forward. I don't think it is. So queen e5 is a pretty serious threat for white, no matter what's going on. So I'm like, can I play queen d6? Can I just say take my rook, take my other rook, and then do something big and bad? It's a bit hard to believe. I'm down a piece at that point. Okay, for 3 pawns, but king d7. Holy camoli, why didn't I think of that? I'm extremely intrigued by this move. I just feel it's it, but I don't know why, but I just feel that's it. King d7. I think it's it. King c8, king b8. And what are you gonna do? King d7 protects the rook, protects against queen a5. Queen f7, that's king c8. There's no more, well, queen e6, king b8. I think it's it. King d7. Well, I'm gonna drink take a slug of water for that. King d7. I don't see a refutation. Let's see. Can I try something really daring with bishop g5? If the queen take, there's queen f7 and c7 is hanging again. So that could be a bit tricky. So king d7, bishop g5. Can I just play queen f8? And protect my rook, protect the f-pawn, threatening to trade queens. If there's a knight check, my king will keep running, so that's not working. So queen e5. At that point, queen c7 might be a big threat. So what do I do? Can I go queen d6 there? I don't see any other checks besides knight f6. If knight f6, I can move king c8, because the knight blocks the queen from taking my rook on h8. Right, a lot of arrows. Sorry about that. King d7, bishop g5, queen f8. That's the current line of thinking. Okay, so if queen e5, I can play queen d6. I think I'm gonna go for it. Alright, I didn't look at queen e5 immediately, but my instinct is to keep running to c8. But let's just take a moment here, because we hadn't actually looked at this. So, king c8 looks extremely tempting. Just to keep going with that king and get it to b8. I mean, he can still try to attack this f7 with bishop f4, but he needs a few moves to get that arranged. Rook e8 is another option, but other than attacking the queen, I'm not really doing that much. And there's also knight f6 check. So that doesn't work. So white now, king c8 is the only move I'm... Okay. King c8, bishop g5. Alright, what are you threatening? Of course you want me to move my queen away from c7, but surely I have something like queen d6. Yeah, I think I have queen d6. I'm just like puzzling my defense together. It is extremely dangerous because white has 9 plus 9, 18 points in the attack. And I'm trying to make things do with... oh wait, this h8 is hanging. So king c8, bishop g5, queen d6. Queen takes h8 check. Now, does that mean it's the end or not? Am I not threatening queen d1 or something like this? Or some good stuff? After king d7? Maybe I'm not. Okay, so king c8, bishop g5. Could I play f6? I like that actually. f6 with the point that if the bishop takes, I play rook f8 and I pin his bishop, which deals with the threat for now. And the next turn I'm just going to sack my rook for that bishop and get it out of there. I mean, I am still up a bunch of points, although they are all sitting in the corner, so not completely convinced that they're going to be carrying their duties. But let's see, king c8, bishop g5, f6. If check on e6 or e7, I can go to b8. And I think that might be it. There's some knight c6, pawn takes, opening up the b file, but the queen has no access to it. So I might be in time with that. Alright, I'm ready to do it. Look at that. Well, thank you. King d7. Drunk chess came up with it. And I just immediately felt that must be it. Okay. Now, what about this one? It's a very interesting position. The knight on e6 is awesome. White is up material, because he has a knight bishop for rook, and then the pawns are even. So white is technically up material. The king is looking a little suspect. Rook in h1 as well. There's a pin here. So other than the knight, nothing really looks that great for white. Outpost protected by pawn. Positionally, it's beautiful, but really, his pieces are not coordinating so well. The first move I'm immediately seeing is rook f2 check, forcing queen takes f2, rook takes f2, bishop takes f2. I'm not sure what I would do after that, but I think there might be some interesting moves available, like queen e2, pinning the bishop, forcing the king to protect it. And maybe there's some interesting business. So rook f2 is my first instinct, but I'm not sure if it works. There's also rook f3, trying to win the bishop on e3. And if he plays knight g5, then I can take on e3 with the rook. So rook f3, might be forcing him to play rook e1. How does that change things, if at all? I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Is there anything else in this position worth looking at? Okay, so rook f2, queen takes, rook takes, bishop takes. And now we have the bishop on f2, and it's black's turn. I don't see anything other interesting than queen e2 pinning the bishop, forcing king g1 or king g2. I'm not quite seeing it, so now I'm looking at something else. I'm looking at rook f6 with the idea rook h6. Because that threatens mate. Rook f6 threatens mate in 1 and then 2. So it could be too slow. That is the question. But then I have to find a defense for white before I can write it off. So rook f6. I don't see anything other than king g1 for now. But actually king g1, there is rook f1 check. Queen takes, queen e3 check. And I'm going to take the quiz queen next, at the very least. That should be good for black. So rook f6. What should he do? He cannot take on g5 with the bishop because the bishop is pinned. If he tries queen h5, I should be able to take on e3. And if he takes my rook on f8, I should have something good. Although I'm not sure what it is yet. If rook f6, queen h5, can I play rook f2 immediately? Bishop takes, rook takes, king h3, queen h1. Okay, and I'm good. I can at least trade queens and have a good endgame, but there might be more than that. Most likely there is more than that. So queen h5, rook f2, bishop takes, rook takes, king h3, queen h1 check, king g4, queen f3 check, forcing king g5. Really? Is that survivable? It's impossible. Queen f5 check, forcing king h6, queen f6. So rook f6 so far looks actually quite tempting. I don't see a defense just yet. It looks so good that I'm about ready to play it. Can he go knight g5? To play knight h3. I mean, he could, but I can check, block, take the knight, take with the queen on h1. That should be pretty good. Yeah, so rook f6, knight g5, rook h6, knight h3, rook takes, king takes, queen h1. I'm up an exchange. I mean, there's some pawns going on, but there should be some checks to follow anyway. So it should be good for black. Also, rook f6, I was briefly considering maybe now rook f2 is somehow better with some sort of double attack with the knight on g5 and whatnot, but rook f6 looks good so far. If just get that rook to h6, and since there's this king g1 rook f1 tactic, it just feels too good to, no, it doesn't feel too good to be true. The opposite, feels like it has to be true. I'm ready to do it. Okay. All right. So now, brief moment, recalibrate. Is my plan still working? I think it's the only thing I can do. Okay, take, and that's it. Okay. On we go. This is some sort of a Petrov defense. e4, e5, knight f3, knight f6, knight e5, and then somehow black got like 3 moves in a row, or what's going on here? The last move is knight e5, apparently. Okay, I'm not sure how that happened, but what to do? What is going on here? So f2 is a target. It's protected by the king, attacked once, but if I add another attacker, I'm threatening to take it. So queen f6, queen h4, those are the kind of moves I would consider. Maybe even knight f2. Of course, there's a check on this diagonal, but he can block, so it's probably not it. But b4 is another target square. d4 is attacked once, protected once, also a target. e5, same deal. If I take, he has to recapture, so it's a forcing move that could be very tempting to look at. Actually, I'm getting some ideas here. If knight takes knight, forcing move, forcing recapture, knight takes f2. I mean, I'm forking the rook and the queen, so he has to take. Now I have this diagonal is open and this diagonal is open. So the next question is, who is going first? So let's try queen h4 check first. Oh, at knight d4, that's interesting. Knight d4, queen d4, bishop c5 could be interesting. But I'm not sure how big my... if knight takes or f2 or bishop takes f2 is crushing. So far, I'm intrigued by this knight e5, d5, knight f2, king f2, queen h4 check. Because one thing I see is that the king cannot go to the light squares, because then the bishop will come in and skewer white's king and queen. So if the queen h4 check, the king cannot go to g1, because bishop c5 will come in and checkmate. So that's already 3 squares gone, which leaves only 2 moves. So king e3 and pawn to g3. Where pawn g3 is probably the more interesting one of the bunch. Bishop c5, king g2. Or is there a bishop h3? Alright, I'm 99% sure this is how it starts. Because it just feels... Okay. That's how it goes. You don't think things through good enough, and here you go. So at least we're done, and now we can see what was better. Oh well, this is not it. Oh, knight e5. Black to move. No, this is not the puzzle. It was after knight e5. Why is this going on? Let's see. Takes, takes. So apparently knight f2 is not good enough. So what, bishop c5 first? Bishop check first? Alright. Bishop c5. What kind of line is this? Bishop takes c6. Okay. That's it. I'm not winning with knight f2. More than 1% out. Yeah, well, clearly you were better. You were had a better idea than I did because I was 90% sure this was it. By the way, 99% sure might not be enough, as it turns out. Okay, analysis. I want to see how bad it takes. So knight f2, not even top 3. I get nothing for knight f2. No bonus points, plus even. Oh boy. So bishop c5. Yeah, so here I sort of stopped and then I didn't calculate any. Okay, I did look at this briefly and I thought, well, you know, don't I take on h1? I hadn't really looked at it yet. Of course, had I looked at it, then maybe I would have come to the conclusion it's not all gold at the end of the rainbow. Alright, well, that settles that. After, what, 45 minutes of pretty decent concentration, there I go. Drunk chess, why didn't you tell me about the 1% more doubtful? Yeah, this is looking pretty good. After bishop e3, then there's queen h4. And now everything works because of this knight g3 move. And after takes, the best is queen takes rook, as is usual. And black has, yeah, we're way too fast. Yeah, and everything else doesn't look so glorious either. f2 is just too much to deal with. Okay, well, I want to leave this screen. I want to leave this puzzle. I'm going to go check the other two. This one was forever ago. And somehow I got this one wrong. Probably I was too fast. Actually, yesterday's lesson with some Hartford High School students. Was it Michael? Yeah, it was Michael. And Shadial was also there. I was talking a lot about, you know, looking at a game of theirs and talking about how much time they used for certain moves and efficiency of using your time. If you have 10 minutes, don't spend 10 seconds on a move that is, you know, maybe not that good. Or spending half a minute on a game and already being lost after 10 moves, then probably the main problem is using your time. And as you see, it goes for me as well. So what did I try here? I tried queen e1 check and knight e4, which was wrong. So knight g4 is probably it, is my guess. Yeah. And then there's a queen sack. Okay, so analyze why knight e4 is not good. What had I actually seen? I had seen king g2, queen a6. So what is the difference? We'll find out shortly. It's still minus. Okay, not exactly what my idea was, but obviously black is winning here. Extra pawn. Queen and knight are one of the strongest, the strongest attacking combo, other than queen and queen. And especially in an endgame queen knight against queen bishop, they are a menace against the king. Yeah, I don't cover h2, which must be the point somewhere, but this is winning. My move was winning. Look at that. Of course, I didn't look actually at queen a6, but never mind that. So this is winning because after queen a6, it's queen f2, queen h2 mate. So what was I looking at? I was looking at a runner. The last thing I said was, well, he's attacking my knight, so... But of course, I could have kept looking at this and seeing that it was checkmate. Anyway, another case of not spending enough time. And so it goes. And I'm guessing the third one I missed is probably the same story. What did I do? Oh, rook takes, and then I played d3. And my point was to get something going. Put analysis. My point was to get something going on the diagonal. If bishop d3, I saw queen c3, which is going to win a rook. And if queen d3, I thought bishop f6, but apparently maybe not. Rook g5. Would I have found that if I had looked at it? I should have, but anyways. All right then. So what does the beast say? How this would continue? Bishop e3. Okay, I like that move. Queen a3. All right then. I suppose there's actually not that many squares for my queen. There's also a5, and then there's knight e5 for those who want to get real fancy. So let's go. Let's say queen a5. Bishop d2. This is interesting. Okay, better for black, but not at all that clear. So I think Daniel, Mr. Zhao, said queen c3 first, and he was right. Threatening d3 and queen a1, and there's no more defense. If bishop b5, king f8. Well, there's more moves apparently. d3 is also good. Rook c8. King f8 is a pretty nice one. Stepping away from this check on c6. And now these are really ready to go. Let's say if I get really fancy, how many good moves? Everything wins. Okay. Everything? Everything wins. The king will just hightail it out of there. All right. I started this by getting the blood flow to my brain going just after waking up. I guess I accomplished that. Was still too fast in some of them, but that was I wouldn't have gotten this far without the help of the chat, that's for sure. So it's a bit of a miracle I got this far as it is. Let's see. I was automatically locked out. Let's go back to live chess. Okay, here we go. I was thinking about playing some games now, but let me see. Is there any activity going with Hartford High School students? Hello, David. What is my favorite way to win in a checkmate in chess? Well, I'm thinking of a few. There was actually one problem. I should not have clicked it away, but I did. En passant mate would be fun. I don't think I've ever had that. Promoting a pawn to the other side of the board, what we call minor promotion. So usually when you promote a pawn and get it across, then you turn it into a queen. But what would also be fun would be to promote a pawn to a knight, checkmating your opponent. That would be pretty fun. Actually, there's a very famous chess problem. Let me try to look that up briefly. It's called the Babson task. I'll put it Babson task. And there's a particular type of chess problem, namely a direct mate with the following properties. White makes the only move that forces checkmate in a stipulated number of moves. Okay, this is all rather difficult language. Black's defense include a promotion of a certain pawn to either a knight, bishop, rook, or a queen. Let's see if I can find a f8 knight or bishop or rook. Yeah, minor promotion to checkmate. The Babson task is something that is like ridiculously hard. Let's see if I can find a Babson. No, it's looking like madness. But maybe. Okay. I'm going to pull up a Babson task. My brain is hurting just looking at it. But I'll just show it anyway. I'm going to move to lead chess to show it because I'm much more capable in navigating my way around lead chess than I am with chess.com. Alright, let's change this. Okay, you guys should be looking at my lead chess page now. Now I'm going to start a study. Plus, I'll make it public is fine. Call it Babson task. Now I have to copy the position from where a different screen. Clear the board. This is going to be a little bit tricky, as you will soon see. Alright, that's for the pawns. The kings are. Where are the kings? This is going to be completely crazy. Rook e1, rook c1, bishop. There's a white bishop on c3. Now there's a bunch of knights. Is this it? I think this is it. Complete madness. Double check. Yeah. Okay, and it's black to play. No more castling rights, I believe. So, here we have it. A Babson task. White is going in this direction. Black is going in the other. So this is complete mayhem. And black to win. Knight takes b6. Let's see. Oh no, it's white to move. Sorry, I should redo that. Add a new chapter and change to white to play. White to play and win. If you can believe it. Let's see if Stockfish Stockfish thinks there's all kinds of moves that are winning. Who knows? Well, let's look at what the solution is supposed to be. Knight takes b6. And now, no matter what black promotes on d1, apparently white is always winning. So if we go d1 equals queen, there's e takes f8 equals bishop. Queen d4 check, bishop takes d4. Oh no, e takes d4. What is going on here? Are there some stalemate issues? Yes. There's some stalemate issues. King takes d5 checkmate. Okay then. Yeah, that's. You can see how it's checkmate. How you get to that, that's a whole different question. So d1 queen doesn't work. So if you try d1 bishop, there's e takes f8 rook. And king d6, what's going on? Queen d2, and it's mate on the next turn. The queen is going to e3. Or if king here, I guess there is what? Rook c8 mate. Alright, this is complete madness. Babson task. I'll just, there's just a few more lines, so I'll just show it, and then you can Google it yourself if you want to read more about the Babson task. If rook, there's e takes f8, knight check, king d6, bishop e5, king c5, queen c2 checkmate. And then if black plays d1 knight, there's e takes f8 queen, knight takes c3, king takes a5, knight e4, c8 queen, checkmate. Yeah, this is okay, David, you asked me a pretty easy question and then I thought about the Babson task when I thought about minor promotions, and then something happened that I can't explain. Yeah, it's one of the most difficult themes in chess studies is Babson task. I believe it's something with white to, or some white or black to play and win, and then you have to look at all the minor all the different promotions, queen, rook, bishop, knight, and then white responds with different promotions as well. Now, to think of this, some people spend years and years on stuff like this, and it's making my brain hurt as well. But I will show you in the puzzle rush. There was one problem that I immediately knew the answer to, because I had actually had that particular checkmate in a game. No, I just want another chapter. Starting position. I'm not sure if I know the exact game, but more or less. So this was from my first 20 games on the internet, playing online in 1993. There were just a few hundred players on the internet playing chess at that time. Everything, there was no interface. It was just all text on a screen, and you just type your move, and then you hit enter, and then your opponent would see it on his screen, and then he would type his move, and you would just play like that. And actually, that was the beginning. So this was at the time when they had their first interface on the Internet Chess Club. So this must have been 1995, actually. This was part of my first 20 games on the ICC, which started in 1995. And it was a match against Roman Dzindzikashvili, grandmaster from, I believe he lives in New York. The Internet Chess server, that's how it started, the American Internet Chess server and the free Internet Chess server. And the AICS became the ICC, and that's still what it is today. Roman was the best player at that time on the ICC. And my first 20 games were against Roman, and I did fairly well. I believe he won 12-8 or something to that effect, which made me the second highest rated player on the ICC, which lasted for I don't know, a couple of years. And then at some point, of course, more players started joining, and that was it. And I was a big fan of the free Internet Chess server, but against Roman we had a game that went as follows. I was white, 1995, so bear with me. How did he start? Did he start with knight f6 or d5? I believe he started with d5. I'm not sure if Hikaru ever grew up, so that's an interesting question. Knight f6, bishop f4, c5, e3, knight c6, c3, e6, knight d2, bishop e7, bishop d3. So London system. And he castled. I played knight e5. He took, I took, he played knight d7, and I played this little opening trap, which is not very sound, but you know, what are you gonna do? Bishop takes check, and it's a forcing line. He takes. I check with my queen. He has to go back, and now I bring in my knight. Thanks for joining Dwang Chess. I'll be back on Sunday, next Sunday morning. And I'm ready to bring my knight in to try to checkmate. So, actually this is not completely correct yet. I played h4 first. My apologies. h4 first. Then he played pawn to c4, and then I sacked and checked. And now I'm ready to bring my knight in to try queen h7 mate. So he played f6, but I played knight here anyway, threatening mate. And there's not really a good way to defend other than taking. But now I take with my pawn and I open up my queen and rook. And he took an f4, trying to create some space for his king. But here was a very nice little tactic. Queen h8, king f7, g6, a magnet combination. I'm luring the king to this square. And then the queen comes back and checkmates the king. The pawn takes this square, and the queen covers everything else. So my best advice for kids who are interested is to play chess first of all. Right now, the options to play in-person chess are very limited because of the pandemic. But more and more in-person chess is being organized around the state. Until that time, you should definitely just play a lot of chess online. That is the best way to get better. There are also more specific things you can do, like training puzzles. On Lichess, you see there's a puzzle button here. You can also do puzzle streak, storm, racer. And on Lichess, the nice thing I like is chess basics, where you just start at the very beginning and then you work your way through the fundamentals. And it is, even for me, I mean, when you do like any sort of puzzle just for fun, something that's easy to solve, it can still be just a good way to pass some time. So even for me, this is sort of funny to just go through. The rook, it moves in straight lines, and so now I guess I have to take all these things. So this is how you pretty much learn fundamentals from the beginning, and as you go through these things, it will get harder and harder, up to the point where maybe at some point you'll catch something that you're not that familiar with. So there's the knight, let's go, and you can do the same. I think these are very good puzzles. And so this is certainly also another thing I would recommend. I don't know if chess.com has these, not as far as I know, but then I haven't looked too closely. But here are some very good puzzles. On Lichess, it's free to join. So now it goes into capture, protection, combat. I don't know about capture and defend pieces, check in one, out of check, mate in one, and then it just keeps going up. So actually I really like these puzzles that they have here. So playing and puzzles are very good. On chess.com, let's see if I go back to chess.com, what is available there. Let me just okay, chess.com, here we go. I'm not as used to using chess.com. There's just so much going on that when I click on all these things, there's just hundreds of menu options staring at me. But let's see what is available here. Under play, live chess, play, computer. Okay, look, what is this? A puzzle piece. Drills. Okay, let's see what are drills. Chess drills. Okay, checkmates. Endgame fundamentals, endgame practice. Attacking, maybe this is pretty good. Let's see. Let's click on endgame fundamentals. Alright, so one thing I don't like here is that these endgame fundamentals actually start with the most difficult endgames in the game of chess. Pawn endgames. So yes, they're fundamentals, but they're actually quite complicated already. And this is then the second chapter is endgame fundamentals and not easy at all. Checkmates, let's see. These I really like. These are extremely useful and they're very good. The checkmates with 2 rooks, queen and king, rook and king. Okay, now it gets pretty complicated. Bishop, bishop. And this one, bishop, knight, king, is the nightmare of most chess players, masters included. They've never had it and they're not sure how to do it, usually. So these get very complicated fairly quickly as well. But they're pretty good, especially the first couple are extremely useful, at least up to king and rook, because they're very common and they're extremely important to know because they're so common. So I like the checkmate section. Endgame practice is probably not going to be easy. Yeah, pawn endgames. High level stuff. Advantages, what is that? Pawn endgame, very difficult. Pawn endgame, quite difficult. Extra knight, also very difficult. This is not beginner level chess at all. Okay, once it gets to queen, upper queen, okay, that could be interesting. But these pawn, bishop, knight endgames are very complicated. Even if it's your upper piece, these are not easy to play at all. And I don't think it's that useful to practice them at this point for almost any player who is part of the Hartford Public Library program. Attacking, that is probably more useful. There's some good traps here. There's some things about development. But already you can see this is just a mix and match of very different levels of chess. Master games, imbalances, odds, defending might be pretty good. Oh no, it's rook and bishop against queen is just like, it's nice but not particularly useful until you get way more experience. So these drills, I'm not a huge fan of them, to be honest. I mean, the puzzle rush, the puzzles are pretty nice, but they're like a huge mix of all kinds of puzzles. I don't think the so I like Lichess much better than chess.com as far as that goes. So yeah, play and puzzles, and my preference is Lichess. Alright, let's see if any one of you want to play a game. Let me see if that, who was it again in the chat who asked to play a long time ago. Let's pull that one up. Where are we? Alright, anyone in the chat wants to play now? Let me see. There was someone while I was doing the puzzle rush. Someone by Bayak Joe. Let me see if Bayak Joe is actually still on the server. How do I do that again? chess.com. How do I do this again? Oh, here we go. Members. And search. He is playing online. He's from Lebanon, apparently. I'll just briefly friend him so you can see that. But anyone wants to play who is in the chat right now? Not sure if I can see who's in the chat. I'm not that new on chess. I am fairly new at streaming chess. Let's go back to live chess. Okay, users in chat. I can actually see that. Look at that. Alright, Bayak Joe is not present anymore. Any one of you there now wants to play a game, let me know on Lichess or chess.com. And don't be afraid. I've lost many more games than probably all of you combined in my life. That's what you get when you play a lot of chess. It also improves the chances of getting better at it. Alright, no one yet. Let's see if that Bajak Joe is still out there. He is not playing a game. I'll just challenge him to a game. I'll make it unrated, otherwise I probably won't be able to get through. 3 minutes is fine as well, random as well. Let's see if he responds. Oh yeah, Davian, you can. I will retract my challenge. And you're online, very good. Do you have a preference for... first you can choose the time control. I now have it set for 3 minutes, but anything works. 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 3 minutes, 1 minute. Which one do you prefer? 10, 5, 3 or 1? Three minutes, okay. And you can, we have to go, we'll go unrated, because I think if there's a big rating difference, chess.com sometimes doesn't allow a challenge, so unrated. And the color, you can choose random, white or black. If random, the chess.com will randomly assign a color. But you can also pick white or black if you prefer one or the other. Maybe you will get a chance to play one each. In that case, I would just click random and see what happens. But maybe you'll have a preference. Random, there we go. Alright, I'm clicking on play. So I think you should get some notification somewhere, and you do. And here we go. And I'm black. And I'm waiting for you to make a move. Hopefully you also, there you go. Pawn to e4, a good move. I'll play pawn to c5. This is called the Sicilian defense. I've played it so many times in my life. It's a miracle I still like this opening. Pawn to f3. Okay, so I see that this diagonal to the king opens up. But I'm not seeing anything particularly. Still have pawn g3 as a blocker, so I will just develop my knight to c6. And my goal is to develop my knight and bishop on the next to my king and to castle. And there's a couple of ways to do that. And I'll probably choose the one I choose most often. pawn to d3. So now you've got a very solid center. g2, f3. Alright, I should also not talk too much. Only 3 minutes, but your center in your center pawns in the on the light squares are very solid, but your dark squares might be a little soft now because your pawns went too wide. So I'm going to try to get my bishop to g7, and I really like bishops on the longest diagonal of the board. At least one of them, sometimes even two. But I'll start with my dark squared one, because I want my king to get castled kingside. Knight c3, that's a pretty good move, developing the knight. I develop my bishop. My bishop attacks your knight, but your pawn protects your knight. So your knight is safe. Your knight is fine where it is. Alright, now you put another pawn on h3. Now I'm getting more interested in getting a queen to g3 or h4 to check you on this diagonal. So I'm actually going to work towards that goal. I'm going to open up the diagonal of my queen to square h4. And I do want to check you there, because your king will have to move and your king would not be able to castle anymore. So I'm ready to play queen h4 check now. And that will keep your king in the middle of the on the E and D files for a while. Okay, here I come. Queen check. If you block with your pawn, I'll take it. So that's gonna work for me. So your king will have to move. And you're going to try to block me anyway, but my queen isn't blocked that easily. Now your king will move. And I have a feeling you might get checkmated in 2 moves. Because my knight comes in. And then my bishop will come in. And then you have one more blocking move, maybe. Depending on where you go. And that will be it. Alright, let's see. I have bad news, Davian. Bad news. My bishop is coming in. And it is checkmate. Alright, we're going to look at this to try to see how you can improve, or could have improved in this game. Another way to get good is to play a lot, but also to try to analyze your game afterward to see, you know, what went well and what could have been improved on. So we'll go back. And okay, actually we'll go back from the end to the beginning. So in this position it's checkmate, because my bishop, I'll click, actually I want the analysis board so I can draw arrows and such things. So let's do that. Now of course I'm probably going to get all kinds of engine chatter, what is good and what is bad and this and that. I don't like engine chatter that much. So I think we can do it like this. Can I draw? Yes, I can draw arrows. So the bishop is coming in on this diagonal and it's checkmate. You cannot block with your pawn because the queen is pinning your pawn to the king. You cannot go down because my bishop, knight and queen are actually covering these squares on the second rank. So you're on checkmate. So here there's no more moves for white. So let's see if you could have improved earlier. So we'll take my move back and we'll take your move back. And in this position, after knight check, the only other move you have besides the move you played is king d2. Now if you go to d2, I will still play bishop h6. Check, and the only way to get out of check on the next turn is to move your pawn up. But your pawn is unprotected and I will take it, and it's still checkmate. So in this position, after I move my knight with check, you have no way out. At this point, you cannot defend against the bishop checkmate coming up. So that means that in this position, you should maybe try something else. But if you try to go to d2, I will actually start with my bishop check. And you can block once, I will take it. And when your king moves to the only square available, my knight will come in and it's also checkmate. So what that means is that in this position, no matter where you go with white, you will be checkmated. So something has to be improved earlier. Let's go back one move. So in this position, actually you don't have a defense either, because if you move your king in this position, the same thing is going to happen to your king. You will get checkmated by this bishop on this diagonal. Or if you choose to go to d2 first, then the bishop will come first and the knight will come next. So actually in this position already, after my queen comes out, it's checkmate. There's no more defense. So then we have to go back, and that must mean that this pawn move to a3 was a mistake, and that means you have to improve right here. So I want to ask you, Davian, you know now that if you play a3 and I play queen h4 check, you are lost. You're going to get checkmated by my queen, bishop and knight. So instead of a3, you should defend against queen h4 check. This is the move you have to defend against. And let's see if you can think of a way to defend against queen h4 check. You have to defend against a piece coming to an empty square. And there are 5 ways to defend. I will actually type them. 5 ways to defend against an attack in the chat. First one is, well, you can try to move away from the attack. Now, if a piece or pawn gets attacked, that might be possible. But in this case, I'm attacking a square, and squares cannot move away. The h4 square cannot just say, well, I'll go to i4 for a little while, and I'll move back. Not allowed. A second way to defend is to protect the square or piece being attacked. So protect means to back up that piece or square with one of your own pieces. So can you protect square h4? Can you put something of your own that will aim at this square? Anyone in the chat can answer if you want. It's a question for Davian because he played this game, but it's good if you can find it yourself, but sometimes just seeing the answer is good enough. Just seeing the pattern of what's going on. So the pattern right now is queen h4 check. That's the pattern. And then there's a checkmating pattern following up with my bishop and knight. But now I want to see the pattern to defend against queen h4 by protecting your h4 square. You want a piece to aim at it, so that if I put my queen there, you can take it. That means to protect. You want to make a move that if I put my queen on h4, you will take my queen. Which move can white play to do that? And as far as I can see now, there's only one move that does that. I'll give you guys 10 seconds. How about that? Pawn maybe. Well, let's have the answer. Pawn where? Because pawn is right, but pawn where? Which pawn can protect h4? So which pawn can aim at that square so that if my queen gets there, you'll take it? Let's see, can you guys see the coordinates on the screen? I think you can. All right. From h3, okay, so you're very close. Actually, you are right, but it's not your pawn protecting it. You can play h4, and now it's not your pawn protecting it, but actually it's your rook protecting that square on h4. Now there's a pawn there, but your rook is now protecting h4. Basically, in this position, the pawn is blocking the path of the rook, but after h4, the path has opened up. And I should no longer move my queen to h4, because if I do, you will take me, and you'll definitely not get mated in a few moves here. So h4 is a good defense. Now you're protecting square h4 with your rook. There's also another one. You can move your g-pawn to g3, and now your g-pawn protects the square. If I move out there, you will take me. Bad news for me. So I will not move out there. What I might try is a move like queen c7 and aim at your pawn, because your pawn has no protection. So then you would have to defend the pawn on g3. But let's first go back. So in this case, you can protect the square by moving pawn h4 or moving pawn g3. So there are two defenses at least. A third way to defend after move away and protect the square is to block the attack to the square or piece. Basically, you can put something in between my queen on d8 and the square on h4, which would mean that you have to put something on one of these squares. Now you can, in this position, because you can move your bishop here. Now you're defending against queen to h4, because I'm not allowed to make that move. The problem is that your bishop is not protected, so I can take it and I'll renew the threat of coming to h4. Actually, in this position, I'm also threatening to come to g3. So bishop g5 works for one move, but not after. So bishop g5 doesn't work. So blocking is not good. A fourth way to attack is to capture the attacker. Well, my queen is the attacker of the square, and you cannot capture my queen. So that doesn't work either. And there's one more way to defend, and that is to counter-attack something of equal or bigger value. Now, that could be a check, because if you check my king, it's of bigger value than me checking your king. Because if you check me, I have to get out of it, but you cannot check me. You can check me in two moves with the knight, but if you do that, you're not defending against queen h4. So you're not in time for that. And there isn't really anything bigger of me to attack here. So out of the 5 ways to defend, the only one that works is to protect square h4. Either by g3 or by pawn to h4. And the best move is probably g3. Yeah. Then if I move queen c7, you can move your other pawn to f4. And now you're blocking my queen from access to g3. Okay, so here is where you had an improvement. Instead of pawn to a3, you should have moved g3 or h4. So now I will say something that's not about tactics. So tactics is capturing pieces, checking a king, checkmating a king. Those are all called tactics that last anywhere between 1 and let's say 5 moves. So short-term battles. But it's also strategy or positional chess. And that's like long-term planning. So one problem that you had in your game is that you put all your pawns on a light square here. And that means that these pawns are no longer protecting dark squares. Your pawn structure is now mostly protecting light squares. The only one that's protecting a dark square is this pawn on b2, and it's very important because you're defending against my bishop taking your knight. But when you put all your pawns on light, it means that your dark squares get very weak. For example, the one on d4, g3, h4. You have no one attacking those squares. And I have a lot of pieces who can try to come after those squares. So I would advise you to, in the beginning of the game, not to put too many pawns on the same color, but also not to move too many pawns. So the one that I think is not so useful is actually the f-pawn. I don't think the f-pawn adds too much, and it would be better on f2, so that your king cannot easily get checked on this diagonal. So going back, for example, In this position, I would not move f3. Knight c3 I think is a pretty good move, as well as d3. And then I would try to get castled quickly by moving these two out. You can either do it like this, and then the next thing I would move this bishop to either g5, f4 or e3. Or you can also do it like this. Basically, you use the same setup as I have on this side, except on your side. And for example, like that. So if you look at this setup here, then it's an extremely solid setup. These pawns on black, and then your bishop is on white, and your bishop is protecting against black pieces trying to come in on those light squares. So not too many pawn moves in the beginning. Try to move bishops and knights, and try to get castled. And it's sort of like a safety first strategy in a sense, where before you try to go after your enemy pieces or your enemy king, or you first try to make it harder for your opponent to come at you. When I play chess, my character is that I always look for danger that could happen to me, as opposed to the danger I could inflict on my opponent. And once I feel safer and safer is when I start looking for attacking my opponent more and more. But in the beginning, usually I like to play it safe. Alright, we are almost 3 hours in. It's been a pretty good session so far. We have how much time left? 7 minutes. I can play one more game. Davian, you want to play a rematch? Or does someone else want to play? Otherwise, I'll just click 3 minutes and I'll get an automatic pairing with someone who is looking for the same thing. I see there's quite a few games going on. I see a very strong grandmaster from India. Vidit, I'm guessing, is... Let's do it. Well, in that case, I will now play with white and you'll play with black. And here we go. I think you should get a notification. I should mention that I think there's a 3-second delay or 5-second in the transmission in the live stream. So what I say now you will hear in 5 seconds. Alright, it disappeared on me, so let's try this again. Oh no, there it is. Very good. Okay, here we go. I'm going to play knight f3, and in about 5 seconds you will hear me saying that. After you've seen me already do it. Pawn to h6. Okay. I'm not sure who is going to be helped by your pawn on h6, but knight f6, I like that move. I'm going to continue my development, getting my knights into the middle of the board and getting pawns into the middle of the board as well. And then I'll try to castle. Good move, d5. Okay, my bishop will come out to f4 before I put my pawn on e3 and solidify my pawn center and allow my other bishop to develop. Okay, c6. I'll play e3. This sort of beginning of the game has been seen thousands and thousands of times in the history of chess. This looks very, very familiar to me. Not to you, because you have not played nearly as much. But so far it's looking pretty good. I'm castling, so now my king is fairly safe. My bishops and knights have developed. You might have tried to castle, but when you castle you always have to move your king first before you move your rook, because when you move your rook, that's the system thinks that's just your move, and when you move your king 2 squares, the system knows you want to castle. So that might be a bit unfortunate. You can still try to castle queenside with your other rook, but that's not so easy because you have 3 pieces blocking in between your king and rook, and it might also not be that safe. So rook f8 is a bit of an unfortunate move. Queen c7. Uh-oh, you're staring down my bishop on the same diagonal. So if I move my knight, my bishop attacks your queen. So I'm going to move my knight and attack the biggest target I can find, which is your rook. So I'll play knight g6. I want your queen, and you should defend against me taking... I get your queen. Yeah, that was a very tricky move. It was a discovered attack. So your queen is not happy because your queen is no longer on the board. And your king is not so happy because it didn't castle. When I'm up material, like 3 points, a knight, bishop or more, I'm always going for an attack unless my king is not safe. But if my king is safe, I want to attack. I don't want to trade pieces. I want to attack your king. Because if I have more points on the board attacking, then you can possibly have defending. That means that your king is in trouble. And actually your king is in trouble, because you have only one move to get out of check, which is with your rook. And then I will add my queen to the battery of my bishop. So now it's a very nice action for my queen bishop against your king and rook. And there is big trouble ahead. Your rook is going to go. And now I want to attack more, but how do I do that? I would like my knight or my rook on f1 to be part of this attack. So, okay, pawn g6, attacking my queen. I'll take my queen. I'm threatening queen g8 mate. That's not going to be easy for you to defend against. There are some defenses, but there are many more moves that don't defend than do defend. The key is that you have to open up square e7, and unfortunately that did not happen. Okay, let's take a brief look. Analysis. So I can move pieces. So the game started out quite well. Actually, up to this point, we're doing almost the same thing. Here, my impression is that you were trying to castle, but you moved your rook first. So once you move your rook here, then the system thinks you want to play rook f8. If you move your king 2 squares, the system knows that you want to castle. And if you castle, your position is completely fine. I would probably still play knight d5, but you could play like knight d7 and maybe engage in some trades with between the knights and slowly get your pieces out. One thing you do is move your pawn to b6 and your bishop to b7. But after rook f8, the problem is that now your king is sort of stuck in the middle, and it's very hard to get that king out of there. You should probably still play knight d7 to try to trade my knight. After queen c7, you're walking into a discovered attack by my bishop. So my knight moves away. You're looking at my knight moving. You think, oh, that knight moves and he wants to take my rook. But hold on, I can take it. And you will not first see that your queen is being attacked by my bishop. But if once you see that, then you have to make a decision. What's more important, the rook or the queen? And then you'll see that the queen is more important. The queen should move or maybe block. And once I take your rook, you should take back. So now you lose your queen and you're in big trouble. The pawn is under attack. You could try to protect it with your king. You move the knight, I move my bishop in, I move my queen in, and things are just quickly collapsing here. Alright. Good games. Keep playing. More games, the better you get. And look at especially the on Lichess, the learn section, I think is very useful. With that, I thank you all for joining me this morning. And next Sunday morning, there is going to be a scrimmage between Hartford Public Library chess players and I believe it's Bridgeport Public Library chess players. They've had one scrimmage before, like 6 weeks ago, and that one was won by Bridgeport. Next Sunday they'll try again. We can play a quick game since I promised you that earlier. Are you still there? I don't see you online. What was it? Something with Joe in it. I don't see you in live chess right now. I did send a friend request, hoping that I could find you easily. Yeah, we can play a quick game. Alright, you're back. Alright, very good. I'm going to challenge 10 minutes. Okay, let's go. Here we go. I will play a queen pawn opening. And okay, this is, I believe, what is the Chigorin? In that case, I'll play pawn to g3. It's an opening I have a lot of experience with, especially with colors reversed, meaning that I've played some openings with d4 knight c3. So I know this position quite well. Played many games in it. First thing is to get castled. And then I'll start to attack your pawn center with my pawns. I'm expecting you to move a bishop and castle as well. But there are many moves black could play here. Bishop b4. I could easily attack it with my pawns. It's not really hurting me at all here, so I want to leave your bishop on b4 and see maybe if I can attack it later. Next thing I want to is just attack your pawn center. Open up my queen's diagonal to a4, which is a move I would sort of like to play. And if nothing else, I'll just move my bishop or knight next. Pawn to e5. I have two attackers, you have only one defender, so that looks like it is a pawn sacrifice. And it is one I will take. Knight takes, pawn takes, attacking your knight, attacking your pawn. So far I like my position. There's also queen a4 check threatening. So actually I think you only have one move to make sure you don't lose a bishop or knight on the next turn. I will not reveal that move just yet. I'll give you a chance to find it yourself. Queen a4 is a threat, double attack king bishop, and pawn takes knight. So I'm trying to win either your knight or your bishop. Okay, this is the best move because now you block the check for my queen. In which case I will just take the pawn on d5, which makes me fairly happy as well, but of course I'd rather have won a piece if I can. My pawn on e5 is under attack by the knight. And right now you're trying to take it. Before you couldn't because of queen a4 check, losing your bishop. So now knight e5 is a move that you could try to play. I will defend it with my pawn. I'm opening up this diagonal to my king, so I should get ready to get my king to h1. So I will not get some sort of a surprise attack along that diagonal. I'm going to try to solidify, back up my two central pawns here, and eventually they will try to move forward. For now, let's develop this knight. I'll pre-move pawn takes in case you take my knight with your bishop, which you can, but you don't have to. But that's the only move I know I would definitely play if you would take. You played c6, so I could take another pawn, but there's queen b6 check in the position, so I think I prefer to push my pawn. Now it's a passed pawn, only stopped by pieces, in this case a knight and a queen, so I don't think I'll promote this pawn anytime soon, but still it's a nice pawn to have. It's protected by the pawn on e5, which is protected by the pawn on f4, which is protected by the pawn on g3, which is protected by the pawn on h2. Alright, you take my knight, I will have to recapture. And queen b6 check is not a big issue. I can move my king, but I do not like you having the possibility of a check. So I will try to defend against that fairly soon. I am looking at a move and you just played it. I'm not particularly happy with that because I do like to keep my pawn there, but can I? There's a queen b3 check, king h8, e6, knight c5 attacking. I could play d7. It's a queen sack. Is that necessary? Not really. Well, that's too bad. I was really hoping to keep my pawn on e5. So there's e6 rook takes, but there's not queen b3, knight c5 defends the pin. Okay, I mean, I guess I can just take. Didn't really want to go that route, but maybe I will just have to. Okay. I don't see how to keep my pawn alive on the e-file, so in that case I won't. Queen check. So I can move my king or I can block with my queen. Do I want to trade queens? I mean, it's not bad, but... Alright, let's offer a queen trade. And if you take, I'll take back. So we'll pre-move that. Okay, not a bad move. Recapturing the pawn. Not particularly happy, I suppose, with how this is going, but I just had higher hopes. So what do we do now? E2 is hanging. Okay, I'll just protect it. I'll just protect my pawn on E2. I might as well pre-move pawn takes queen. Bishop f5, huh? Okay. Okay, let's get this bishop out, protect my pawn on d6. Now we have a trade. Rook e3. Interesting move. Attacks my bishop. Okay, well, I'll attack your rook. Attacks my pawn. Yeah, if I go back, you'll go back. I'll play h3. So your knight cannot come to g4 anymore. Okay, so now I can play e4, I think. Can I play e4? Okay, let's do it. Or not. Hold on. Can you take that? Okay, let's go for it. My possession was a lot better earlier. Something went Not quite right. Yep. Okay. Take on d4 is probably coming. Bishop f3. Do I play bishop c2? Somewhat tempting by that move. Okay, let's put my bishop on c2. Time might become important here. So let's try to stay ahead on the clock at least. I'm not sure who's, well, probably am better a little bit. Aha, king h8. I understand, I know what you want to do. Let's bring out my king towards the middle. My rook is not doing particularly much, but so rook d2 is a threat, yeah? That is a threat, so I have to defend against it. Let's play bishop b3. Defend against rook d2. Now rook d2 I can take, and my bishop on c2 is no longer hanging. I'm very happy your rook cannot come to d2. Your rook is coming to e3. That's quite interesting. Okay, I will play bishop e3. Attacking your a7 pawn, although I'm not sure if I want to take it, but we'll see. I do want to get my rook more active. So that will be the first order of business. Rook, aha, do you want to come down rook d to d3? Very likely. Okay, let's protect my bishop before you can do it. There's also rook d2, which I'm now aha. That might be a pretty good move. Okay, let's protect square c2. And there comes c4. Now I have option rook c2 or bishop c2. Rook c2, bishop, rook e3 takes. I think, do I want to trade bishops or not? It's a good question. I will not. I trade rooks, I mean. What will you play? I'm curious to see. Rook a3 might be a pretty good move. Attacking my a pawn. Okay, let's move my bishop. How about e4? Sure, let's move to e4. I think I'll just have to try to claim this one on time. The pawn comes out. Okay, my bishop attacks your rook. And then I have to get my f-pawn going if I want anything. Alright. Can I play bishop c6? Maybe. Okay, let's try it. Does that work? I have rook e8, but I think I can take. because they have a back rank mate lurking. Alright, it was made in E8 already. Okay, doesn't really matter so much, but here I go. Wow, well, you played extremely well after you dropped your pawns up until just a few moves ago. That's all I can say about that. Very good game. Now I really have to go. Thank you all, and I will see you next time.